In this video, we're going to talk about the phylum Cnidaria. In the previous video, we will talk about the phylum Protozoan, and we're able to mention that the phylum Protozoan are called sponges and they are the primitive metazoans. Initially, I note that the animal kingdom consists of the primitive animals. Those are the unicellular animals. Those are the what? Those are the protozoans, unicellular, and the multicellular animals, which is called the metazoans. And after I was able to mention that we have two multicellular animals. We have the poriferans, and the metazoans, the metazoans. Now, why are poriferans not classified under metazoans? The reason why poriferans are not classified under metazoans is because the body consists of aggregate of cells, and this aggregate of cells do not form tissue. You understand? So they have no what? No tissue. So every of their thing is in what? Is in cellular level of organization. That is why poriferans are not under what? Under the metazoans. So the first um, phylums under the kingdom Animalia that belongs to metazoans is the phylum Cnidaria or the phylum Ctenophorans. And initially, the phylum Cnidarian or the phylum Ctenophoran can be was previously classified as Coelenterata. So previously it was classified as what? As Coelenterata. But later they realized that the Coelenterata consists of two phylums that have distinct characteristics, and those are the Cnidarian and the Ctenophoran. And one of the things that differentiate these two groups is the Cnidarian is capable of forming a colony. They are capable of forming what? A colony. And the Ctenophores cannot form a colony. You understand? Another thing is there is a presence of something like anus in what? In the Ctenophorans. But the Cnidarian have their mouths also serve as the anus. You understand? So these are the what? These are the distinct characteristics between the what? Between the Cnidarian and Ctenophoran. So let us go to today's class. What that is what? That is the phylum Cnidarian. Both Cnidaria and Ctenophorans are more complex than sponges, like I've mentioned, as they have cell bound by intercells connection and carpet-like basement membrane, muscles, nervous systems, and have sensory organs. Cnidarians are distinguished from other animals by having cnidocytes that fire upon like structure and are usually used mainly to capture prey. So this group of animals got their name from a particular cell that they possess, and that cell is known as what? Is known as cnidocytes. This cnidocyte is also the stinging cell or the stinging organelles in what? In cnidarians. So that is where they got their name. And this cnidocyte is gotten from a Greek word meaning the sea nettle. That's where they got the what? That is where they got the this thing. Now let us move on to the basic body form of cnidarian. And before I mention that, I have to mention that some cnidarians are bioluminescent. That is, they are capable of radiating light. Example, um, example is jellyfish. Jellyfish is capable of radiating light, and some are capable of afflicting deadly pain. You understand? Like they can sting and inflict a deadly pain in the body of their what? In the body of their prey. So let's talk about the basic form of cnidarian. Most adult cnidarian appears as either free swimming medusa or sessile polyp. Hence, we can say they exhibit what we know as polymorphism. So you have to note that they exhibit what? Polymorphism. They exhibit polymorphism. And this polymorphism means they are capable of exhibiting two stages of life. That is the polyp stage, and the medusa stage. The polyp is characterized by sessile. And when you hear the word sessile in biology, sessile means something that cannot move. Hence, the polyp form is not capable of moving, while the medusa form is capable of what? Is capable of moving. Now, they are radially symmetrical. You understand? They are radially symmetrical and they have no head, but their end is like the upper end of them, like the up, is character is called the oral end, and the lower end is called the arboreal end. Hence, we can say they have the oral arboreal region. Let me look now. Look at this. This is example of a typical Cnidarian, and this is what there is a class hydrozoan, which we will talk about later. So I said they have two ends. The first end is this, that is marked in black, and the second end is this, that is marked in what? That is marked in green. Now this oral end is termed, this end is termed the oral end. That is where their mouth is located. And this end is termed the arboreal end. You understand? So they have the what? Oral arboreal end. You understand? So this is what? This is just a typical hydrozoan. Now this is another example. Now look at this. Can you see the oral end and the arboreal end? Can you see? This is it. This is it. Now look at this. Can you see oral end, arboreal end, oral end, arboreal end? So wherever mouth is, that is the oral end. Wherever something like the bottom is, that is the what? Arboreal end. Now look at this. Let's go back to this. We have to understand that this is the what? This is the polyform that doesn't move, and this is the medusa form that is what? That is capable of moving. These are two different things. So they have the what? They have the mouth. The mouth, also known as the hypostome. You understand? And the mouth leads directly to the what? To the gastrovascular cavity. And inside this gastrovascular cavity, the first stage of digestion occurs. You understand? The first stage of digestion does what? Does occurs. Now, this gastrovascular cavity is where the extracellular digestion occurs. Extracellular digestion. That is where it occurs. You understand? Inside the what? Inside the gastrovascular cavity. Now, there is something called the gastrodermal cell. Look at this. The gastroderma. Inside the gastroderma, the intracellular digestion occurs. So they have two types of digestion. They have the extracellular digestion and the intracellular digestion. The extracellular digestion occurs in the epidermis, while the intracellular digestion occurs in the what? In the gastrodermal cell. You understand? The gastrodermal cells or the gastrodermis. Now, the body form, I don't know if they write that there. So the body form, they are diploblastic. And when we say diploblastic, when we say something is diploblastic, that is, it consists of two what? Two layer. It consists of two layers, which is the what? Which is the ectoderm and the endoderm. So let me take for an example. We have something like this. It's an hydra. I'm just using that as an example. Something like this as an hydra. So we are going to have something like this again. Sorry, it is not smooth. We're going to have something like this. It is not as spacious as I have illustrated, but let me just use this as an illustration. Now look at this. The outer layer is called the epidermis. That is marked in what? In orange. The what? The epidermis. And the inner layer is called the what? The endoderm. So we have the what? We have the epiderm and the what? The ectoderm and the endoderm rather. The ectoderm rather. Let me call the ecto. The ectoderm and the what? And the endoderm. Now, something separates the ectoderm from the endoderm. And the thing that separates the ectoderm from the endoderm is a jelly-like substance or a jelly-like cell, and it is called mesogly. Not mesoderm, please. It is called what? Mesogly. So the mesogly separates the what? Separate the ectoderm from the endoderm. You understand? So they are diploblastic. They have only two what? Two body cavity. That is what? That is the ectoderm and the what? And the endoderm. They are acoelomate. That is, they don't have true body cavity. That's another characteristic of Cnidarians. They are what? They are acoelomate. Let me write it there. Acoelomate. That is, they do not have what? They do not have a true body cavity. You understand? Their body is flat. You cannot really distinguish between the ectoderm and the what? And the endoderm. So let us go back to our slide. So look at this. As I said, the mesogly of polyps is usually thin. So this is one of the characteristics of the mesogly. Like I told you what the mesogly does. The mesogly separates the what? The ectoderm from the what? From the endoderm. You understand? Now, The mesoglea of the polyp is usually thin and soft, but the mesoglea of the medusa is usually what? Is usually thick and springy. Why is it springy? The reason why it is springy is because they have to move. You know how spring used to like move now? You understand? How it used to contract and relax, contract and relax. So that is what the mesoglea is what of medusa is actually doing. You understand? Now they have different zooids. They have what? Different zooids in the colony. Remember, I told you they are capable of forming colonies. They have what? They have different zooids. And this zooid is capable of performing different work. You understand? It's capable of causing what? Different work. Some is used for defense, some is used for reproduction, and some is used for what? For capturing prey. You understand? Some is used for what? Defense, some is used for defense, some is used for reproduction, and some is used for what? For capturing prey. Now, now the zooid, any zooid. Now, let me add this. Any zooid, remember we have what? We have zooids. You understand? We have zooids, and zooid can be used for what? For feeding, and can be used for what? For reproduction. You understand? Now, the one that is used for feeding, the feeding that is used for feeding is called the hydrant. What? The hydrant. Hydrant. And the one that is used for reproduction is called the what? The blastostal. You understand? The one that is used for feeding is called what? The hydrant. And the one that is used for reproduction is called what? The blastostal, which we will still mention very well in what? In Obelia geniculata very soon. Now, let us go to the next slide that we have here. So, general characteristics of phylum Cnidarian. They are mostly marine, with few freshwater forms like hydra. So hydra lives in freshwater, but most of them are in what? Are in marine habitat. Many are colonial, e.g. corals. Corals are colonial, and few are solitary, just like what? Just like sea animals. They are diploblastic. I think I've mentioned this one before. And they show the tissue grade of organization. Hence, we can say they are in what? They are in tissue level of organization. The body is radially symmetry, but the sea animals, also known as cubozoan, they show what? They show biradial symmetry. Is it cubozoan or anthozoan? Sorry, anthozoa. Anthozoa shows what? Biradial symmetry. So they are radially what? Symmetry, but they have exception, which is sea animals. Anthozoan, it show what? Biradial what? Biradial symmetry. So next one, they said polyp and medusa are two different forms of cnidarian. I think I've mentioned that before. Polyp is sessile, while medusa is what? Is free swimming, and it can what? It can swim. The body wall is composed of outer epithelium cells called the what? Called the epidermis, and the inner epithelium called the what? Called the gastrodermis, and it is separated by by a layer called the what? The mesoglea. I think I've mentioned that before. And I said the epidermis, the intracellular digestion occurs in what? In the epidermis. The extracellular digestion occurs in the epidermis, while the intracellular digestion occurs in what? In the gastrodermis. They have a stinging cell, and that stinging cell is called what? The nidocyte. The stinging cell is called what? The nidocyte. So that is where they got their name in the area. I think I mentioned this one before. Now, the nidocyte is used for what? For capturing prey, and for what? For defense. Hence, we can call it a stinging cell. You understand? It is a what? It is a stinging cell. Now, the blind sac like central cavity called the coelenterons, or the gastrovascular cavity. They have what we know as gastrovascular cavity. You understand? So that is where we get the name coelenterata. Remember, I told you we have coelenterata. We can classify them into what? Coelenterata. Now, the medusa form of coelentratus is specialized into stomach, radial canals, and ring canals. The ctenophorans help in what? Digestion and circulation. Remember that ctenophoron is also known as what? It's also known as the central cavity or the gastrovascular cavity. I told you that we have two types of digestion. That is the extracellular digestion and what? Intracellular digestion. The extracellular digestion occurs in the epidermis, while the intracellular digestion occurs in the what? In the gastrodermis. I repeat, the extracellular digestion occurs in the what? In the epidermis or the coelenteron, and the intracellular digestion occurs in what? In the gastrodermis. Exchange of respiratory gases and elimination of excretory waste occurs by simple diffusion because they do not have a system of excretion. You understand? And the neurons are interconnected to form a pair of nerve nets, one in the epidermis and the other one in the gastrodermis. So the two nerve nets are joined together by a neuron that crosses the mesogly. Remember, the mesogly is what separates the what? The ectoderm from the endoderm. You understand? So they have a nervous system. You understand? They have a what? They have a nervous system. And one of their sense organ, a very, very important sense organ is what? Is statocyst. Statocyst. What do they use statocyst for? Statocyst is an organelle for balance. They use statocyst for what? For balancing. So they use it for balancing their body. You understand? So statocyst is used for what? For balance. You understand? Now, moving from there, we have two types of reproduction. They can undergo sexual reproduction or asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction by budding, fission, and fragmentation. You understand? These are the three forms that they can undergo asexual reproduction. You understand? Generally, they are unisexual, but some are bisexual. Fertilization is external. That's one thing you have to note. And cleavage is holoblastic. Development is the indirect and include free swimming ciliated larval stage called the planular larva. In species having polyp and medusa phase, there is alternation of asexually producing polyp and sexually producing medusa, and this process is called metagenesis. That's one of the most interesting part of what? Of the phylum Cnidarians, which means the medusa when they reproduce polyp, like they give birth to polyp. While the polyp, when they reproduce, they give birth to medusa. So that is what we know as metagenesis. There is alternation of sexually, asexually reproducing medusa form and the polyp form. You understand? So the Cnidarians have a remarkable power of regeneration, which means if you see a Cnidarian and you cut them into two, they are going to develop into two different what? Into two different Cnidarians. You understand? They have a very great power of regeneration. Or if they are swimming, you understand? Then one of their tentacle breaks because they have tentacles. That is where the cnidocyte is residing. And one of their tentacle breaks. The tentacle is going to develop into a new cnidarian. You understand? So that is one of the what? That's one of the interesting characteristic of what? Of cnidarian. Now, they have what we know as I did not mention it here. They have what we know as ocelli. Ocelli. This ocelli is used for what? Is used for sense organ, for sensing light, just like eye. You understand? They use ocelli for what? For sensing light. So I can call this ocelli photoreceptor. You understand? Photoreceptor. Photo what? Photoreceptor. So that is what ocelli is. That is what ocelli is. Now moving from there to classification of Cnidarian. Cnidarian can be classified. We have about 10,000 species, but they can be classified into three classes. But basically, I know about four classes. You understand? But this material will mention three classes because the fourth one is cubozoan. So we have the hydrozoan, the scyphozoan, the anthozoan, and the last one that I do not remember to mention here is the cubozoan. You understand? That is also known as the box jellyfish. You understand? An example of hydrozoan is Hydra and Obelia. The example of scyphozoan is Aurelia aurita or jellyfish. The example of anthozoan is Actinia, Meritidium, and Adamsia, also known as sea anemones. These are what? These are anthozoan. You understand? So these are the what? These are the classes of Cnidarian. And this is where we're going to stop the video. In the next video, we'll be talking about the characteristic of each of these classes. Remember, we have talked about what a Cnidarian is, and we've talked about the general characteristic of Cnidarian. So I mentioned that in a Cnidarian, we have something like we have the polyp form, that is what? That is sessile, always attached to a substratum, something like this, the polyp form, and we have the medusoid form, that is what? That is free swimming. That is the medusoid form that is free swimming. And I said they have two ends. They have the oral end, the oral, and the what? And the arboreal end. You understand? And in this place, we also have the oral and the what? And the arboreal end. Those are the two ends that we have. And I said they are diploblastic. They can be subdivided into two body cavity, that is the ectoderm and the endoderm. The ectoderm is separated from the endoderm by what? By a gastrovascular, by a mesogly. You understand? So we have something like a mesoglea, a jelly-like body that separate the what? That separate the ectoderm from the what? From the endoderm. That is the mesoglea. And I said they have two this thing. They have the epidermis, I represent it with E, and the gastrodermis, I represent it with G. And I said inside the epidermis we have the what? We have the extracellular digestion. Extracellular digestion. Inside the gastrodermis we have the what? We have the intracellular digestion. Intracellular digestion. So these are two different things, you understand? So in the next video, we'll be talking about the characteristic of each of the classification of what? Of Cnidarians. We have the class hydrozoan, the class kyphozoan, the class anthozoan, and the class cubozoan. Thank you for watching.